I was the first.
Always come
Look at
back.
Gregory here. Notice anything
Small
familiar?
souls
Dark eyes,
trapped in
brown
prisons
hair
of
with a
my
piece
wound
falling
first
between his
inflicted
eyes,
on me.
shorts, shirt with 2 stripes across the middle. Ladies and gentlemen, Gregory is none other than the crying child.
You've heard of colors before. You've definitely heard of theories before. You may have even heard of color theory before. But what if I told you I used color to make a theory and solved the Five Nights at Freddy's lore? Well, that would be insane, and I didn't do that. But I do think I got pretty close. But before we get into that, ladies, gentlemen, and all other configurations of being, willkommen and bienvenue, welcome to Mori Mortimer's Assorted Goods Emporium. I'm your host, the one and only Mori F. Mortimer, also known as the non-binary person who boxed Scott Cawthon for his jacket.
Halbert David Reeds? You're wearing the Scott fit! Where did you get this? Did you kill Scott? I imagine them breaking into Scott's house and just...
Boxing Scott for his fit.
But you're not here for me. You're here for the intrigue of a new FNAF theorist bubbling from hell beneath, as so many others shone light from heaven above. But I don't have a timeline. Time is a construct in which I do not participate. Plus, it would be absolutely insane for me, a bright-faced entrant to the theorizing world, to claim I have a complete timeline. I'm no dual process theory. Instead, what I have is a color wheel. As anyone with a modicum of media literacy can tell you, color is an essential part of any visual medium. It's a foundational aspect of character design, and in Five Nights at Freddy's, a series built on bright, colorful mascots and simplistic, mostly monochromatic 8-bit sprites, that foundation is very strong. The story, on the other hand, well, there's the reason my first theory isn't a timeline. But, despite the fact that we have moved past the days of simple PNG offices and cryptic background lore into a bright and glorious future of pizzaplexes and cryptic foreground lore, a few things have remained constant. Visual design is key. Color is key. Steel Wool have said it themselves that they have been incredibly intentional with their use of color in their games. Hence why I developed this handy-dandy Chroma key, which I have used to isolate and categorize different uses of color across the various entries of this series in order to present to you the theory I have been setting up with all of this preamble. So, without further ado, I present to you Mori Mortimer's marvelous Chroma key theory and all other such contained sub-theories. Or just Chroma key theory for short. I have decided not to arrange this like a typical color wheel, otherwise I would have called it color wheel theory. Instead, I have organized this video itself to be the Chroma key, based on characters, ideas, and themes, which may overlap and contain multitudes rather than colors by themselves, which also overlap and contain multitudes in their specific meanings and applications. The purpose of the key is to allow myself and you, the viewer, to categorize and analyze the visual elements of this series and extract that sweet, succulent lore, O ambrosia of the Faz gods. Don't worry, I'll have a stylish graphic at the end for everyone to post on Twitter and flame me for. Styles sold separately. It was also a great excuse for me to make these visual accompaniment character designs. Now, let's start with the obvious one. The man behind the slaughter, William Afton. First off, he's the purple guy. Purple's his whole thing. That's one of the most surface-level observations a FNAF fan can make. But it becomes so much more relevant when talking about how it factors into the other characters. What's not usually talked about is the fact that Mr. Afton is also strongly associated with the color yellow. First off, it's the complementary color to purple. Put a pin in that. We'll get back to it later. Second off, let's look at some of the visual references we have for William Afton and see if you notice a pattern. Spring Bonnie, the sprite from the Save Them minigame, Midnight Motorist's Mustard Man, and both of Steve Raglan's different outfits in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Now, if you're like me, and after I combed over every image I could find of this man, you'll notice he wears a lot of yellow. But if you think deeper, and you Google, what does yellow mean color theory, you'll see that among the most significant uses of yellow in media is to denote cowardice and fear. And what does our friendly fake dispatch say about rabbits in the beginning of the parachute.exe ending in Secret of the Mimic?
Or a bunny, running from danger, scared and stupid, searching for a hole to hide in.
When you frame it from that lens, that's William Afton's whole MO. Spring Bonnie is simply a mask for him to hide behind, a disguise to fool the innocent children he victimizes. There is an argument to be made that William Afton views the character of Spring Bonnie as an extension of his own identity. But even so, I would say that extension only functions as a mechanism to channel certain parts of himself and conceal others, to appear friendly, jovial, and in control, when in actuality he is a depraved, disgusting, and paranoid man. The yellow badge he wears during the Save Them minigame is a lesser extension of that idea. It is largely assumed within the community to be an essential signifier of his disguise as an employee at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which he uses as a method to commit more heinous acts. Whether or not it's the DCI, that yellow badge is used to represent more of William's deception. Now, Midnight Motorist. That's a separate video in itself to delve into the exact reasons I believe Mustard Man to be William Afton and how exactly that affects the timeline. But for now, what's relevant to Chroma key theory is that I believe William Afton is already using a fake name at this point in the timeline and inhabiting that identity fully. And no, I'm not telling you when I think Charlie died. That'll have to wait for number theory. But that isn't necessarily relevant to this topic. What's important is that Mustard Man is not William Afton, but likely the game's equivalent to Dave Miller or Steve Raglan. And as for the movie, that's part of the reason behind my Mustard Man idea. William is shown wearing primarily yellow while in his Steve Raglan disguise. But what color is he wearing when he's being just William Afton, as shown in the trailers for Five Nights at Freddy's 2? That's right, purple. And that brings us back to that iconic aubergine hue. We've established yellow to be the color of cowardice, of disguise, and deceit. So then what is purple if not William's true colors laid bare? Let's pull out that pin. Purple is the complementary color to yellow. That means that on a traditional color wheel, yellow is opposite purple, like blue is opposite orange and red is opposite green. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that they're opposites, especially not in this case. They're complements. They go well with each other. Now, how does this apply to our child-slaughtering, remnant-collecting plum person? Purple is often associated with high status. It gained its connotation as the royal color due to its incredible rarity in the world of natural dyes. So only the ultra-wealthy could afford purple clothes. Sounds pretty on-brand for the guy who was not only said to be the businessman of Fazbear Entertainment, but also the one who made the most needlessly complex robots imaginable, all for the purpose of something he only needed a shitty spring-lock suit for. William's opulent purple hue is a perfect representation of his needless grandiosity. After all, he's a performer. Every word he speaks is dripping with latent theater kid energy. But most importantly, and keep this in mind for when I bring this color back in later, purple is one of the least natural seeming colors. The human body is not supposed to have purple coloration. It's the color of bruises, damaged organs, or asphyxiation. Purple is not a color of death, but injury, violence, the twisting and perversion of the natural order. And there is no better example of that perversion than William Afton. Well, that is lore for another day. But there is one other person who is just as associated with purple as William, but much less willingly. Michael Afton, or Mike, an unwitting participant in his father's machinations, or willing if that's your interpretation, but one who was unlucky enough to survive the horrors only to be burnt to the ground by his father's jealous ex-husband. But in all seriousness, Michael Afton is the perfect representation of the unnatural nature of the color purple, but in a unique way from his father. While Michael Afton was once the spitting image of William Afton's charming British exterior, once he was scooped and got entered inside of him, dog, his hollowed out corpus quickly deteriorated into a disgusting purple. You can take this in a few different ways from the color analysis lens, which I will be doing for the sake of thoroughness, as well as the fact that I believe all of these views are equally valuable in a broader analysis of the Afton legacy. Allow me to blend them into one, much like a kind man to 5 children. Mike's purpleization is a wonderful way to visually represent his parallel to William, since the most visual reference of him we get is moldy yellow rabbit fuck. While Michael started out looking just like his father, the serial killer William Afton, as he rots, he becomes that which William truly is on the inside, a hollow, empty monster of a man, propelled only by the twisted remnants of life flowing through. And perhaps that undead flesh sack that rots within the spring bodysuit once again makes Michael Afton the spitting image of his father. So does that make purple a generational curse? Maybe, in the specific case of the Afton family. Another thing purple commonly represents is mystery, intrigue, and hidden secrets. Another reason I'm wearing this deep shade of it. But Michael has another color that is heavily associated with him at a younger point in his life. Gray, as well as the character of Foxy, who is red. Now it doesn't take a genius to realize that Michael Afton is the one wearing the Foxy mask in the FNAF 4 Between Night minigames, and therefore the older brother of the crying child, who I shall be referring to by the community consensus name of Dave Afton. Also, for convenience later, under the interpretation of Midnight Motorist I operate under, Michael Afton is the one sitting on the couch watching TV. What links these 3 instances of Michael together? Sister Location Mike, Foxy Bro, and the couch person? Well, Foxy Bro wears a gray shirt. He also speaks in gray text in the 8-bit cutscenes he appears in, and he's never seen without his Foxy mask in all of FNAF 4, likely due to those cutscenes being simplified reimaginings of his brother's memories. Couch Person also wears a gray shirt, and speaks using gray text. Notably, in a far less antagonistic tone towards his brother, if he is the runaway in Midnight Motorist. Far less antagonistically than how he speaks during FNAF 4, but again, that's for a separate Midnight Motorist video. I have to get all of these out of the way because Midnight Motorist is very laden with visual symbolism. But as for Sister Location, this is the outlier in his association with Gray. After all, the only clothes we see him wearing are those that show him he's the purple guy's son. However, in the movie, Mike Schmidt, who is a clear parallel to the Mike Afton of the games, has a nearly all-gray wardrobe, like every other straight guy his age. Mike wears gray. That's just his thing. Now, it's pretty difficult to tie that into specific visual narrative elements because gray is just kind of everywhere. You don't expect me to be like, oh, you see how all the animatronic endoskeletons are gray, and the walls are gray, and the spirits are gray? Wait a minute. I can be like that. Pale grays, like what Mike wears, is often the color associated with spirits in this franchise. If a spirit is not shown to be possessing a specific animatronic or object, it is depicted as a pale, gray, crying child. With exception of the vengeful spirit over here, but that is a separate topic I will not be getting into in this video. But speaking of other potentially vengeful spirits, what do we see in the survival logbook? Mike, the character most heavily associated with pale grays communing with the spirits of two dead kids, assumedly Dave and Cassidy, his brother, and his unwilling roommate inside Fredbear, both of which just happen to have repeatedly been depicted as crying children with pale gray sprites. Dave just got the luxury of being shown alive as well. Odd, isn't it? How the guy who wears gray is the one who talks to gray spirits. Methinks this means gray is our ghost color, and Mike is that much more of an 80s horror protagonist. Also, it adds some nice duality to his character, that he shares the colors of not only the spirits of Afton's victims, but also Afton himself. But now the easy part of this video is over. We've gotten past the fairly two-dimensional visuals of William and Mike Afton. It's on to Henry fucking Emily. Henry is a very weird character. Before Secret of the Mimic released, we had no idea if he was even in the games. All we really had was HRY223 and some odd details that connected the cassette man from Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator to the character of Henry no last name given from the books, William Afton's business partner. And even now, we only assume his last name is Emily because we decided it wasn't Charlotte's middle name on her grave. We know next to nothing about this man. We don't even know what he actually looks like. Oh, come on! Let us address the character encyclopedia-shaped elephant in the room. This thing is utterly useless, and I frankly despise it. Not only is Henry's design hot garbage, but it makes his color blue and orange. It puts him in these fuck-ass overalls. Like, it's not even the actual opposite to purple. As someone in his position, a robotics technician and business owner would not dress like this. I'm sorry. Why does he look exactly like William Afton from the graphic novels? Oh my god. Okay. Rant over. Anyway, this design is not meant to mimic any in-game material, just a way for me to make this video look good. But let's dissect his interesting relationship with his associations with this series' actual visual design. Henry is assumed to have been the one that actually constructed the original Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, as well as the first Fazbear crew. There was input from Edwin and Fiona Mori, but in the case of Fredbear's Family Diner and many of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza locations we know about, Henry Emily was the lead designer and the one who actually built the dang things. However, much like how William Afton is heavily associated with the yellow version of Bonnie, Henry is equally associated with the yellow version of Freddy. The key difference being Henry didn't do anything more than entertain children with his character, while William used his to murder children. Thus, while William Afton's association with the color yellow is almost entirely because he's a deceitful little bastard, and Henry wasn't perfect himself, he doesn't have this evil bubbling under the surface. Plus, a much more positive reading of the color yellow is its association with positivity and joy, which definitely tracks onto an artistic mind such as Henry. If you want to apply that back to William with the idea that purple is the complementary color of yellow, he is also often characterized as a creative, artistic visionary in pretty much every continuity, as one of the founding members of Fredbear's Family Diner and Fazbear Entertainment. So, let's say that yellow can be used to represent artistry and creativity as well. But Henry isn't fully free from purple himself. After all, Fredbear has a purple bow tie and a purple hat. It's very minor, but that's the little crack in Henry being this fully joyous and good man that we'd like to make him in contrast to William. His characterization in the books show him to be just as mad as his business partner. In fact, him perverting the natural order to make the Charlie bots was what inspired Afton to do his whole immortality through murder thing in that continuity. He has that little bit of purple madness within him that we just don't get to see in full force in the games. But what we did get in the games was still very, very interesting. Let's look at what Secret of the Mimic tells us about Henry Emily. Because while we don't ever see him, what Edwin tells us about him is very, very interesting. By the time that Edwin Murray had taken on the illustrious Fazbear project, it is made clear that Henry is one of the guys in charge of giving Edwin instructions on this project.
Aren't they insane? The look of these new animatronics is Fiona's design, and they're great. Oh, first they approve the art, then they approve the proofs. Now they change their minds. Well, we're so close to final. Why would they change them now? Are they pulling my leg? The new concepts are frankly creepy. It doesn't matter. I'm not changing a single bit of her work, and they can't make me. Test. Journal entry. I got the change order from Hen last night. Yeah, none of this makes sense. I'm almost done. Why change it now? It would be so much easier to keep using the spring locks. Just hire some teens to wear the suits like we always do.
Edwin is very confused at why Henry specifically would be making these drastic changes to Fiona's designs for the animatronics, which apparently were followed up with his own designs for the FNAF 1 crew. Designs Edwin calls creepy, which I gotta agree with him. As much as we've come to adore Freddy and his friends, everything we believe Henry himself designed, such as the classics, the wizards, the toys, the rock stars, and likely the animatronics for the mediocre melodies and the puppets, which were also likely characters he stole from Edwin, are all objectively creepy as fuck. Look at those jaws, the segmented joints, and lifeless eyes. Edwin has made some creepy shit, but Henry is equally guilty. This is why we let Fiona design things. But, did you notice something else in one of those two tapes? A tiny detail. Edwin referred to Henry as Hen. It's not treated as important in the game, nothing more than a nickname Edwin gave to his friend. But what makes it stick out is besides a text log where Edwin talks about warning Hen about the new spring locks and their odd behaviors, that is the only time Henry is mentioned by name in the entire series. Both with that same nickname, Hen. And what's even fucking weirder is that Hen is a strange nickname for someone named Henry. Normally, the nickname for someone named Henry would be Hank or even Harry, just like how William can be shortened to Bill or John can be Jack. It's a weird quirk of the English language, but hen, that's the word for a female chicken. Wait, a female chicken? We only learn about Chica's Party World in Secret of the Mimic, the same game that calls Henry Hen. And we hear about the same thing about Fiona's designs being made into creepy physical versions when Milton tells Edwin about the suits for Chica's Party World. And we know Chica's Party World was out of business by 1975. The profit chart on the blackboard roughly mirrors the MCM net earnings graph. But while MCM was still floating above the red in 1975, Chica's Party World experienced a similar spike and dip to MCM. But they crashed. What does that sound like? The work of one William Afton. He did the same thing to Henry that he did to Edwin, and it would seem like he gave Henry a similar offer, a lead engineer, or something similar. After all, Henry is the only Fazbear guy we ever hear in connection to the Fazbear project. William wounded Edwin badly, but it was a... Now, hear me out. This is gonna get fucking wild. I have watched theorist after theorist make the assumption, an evidence-backed assumption, that Henry was an MCM employee that got poached by William Afton to work for Fazbear. And I think it's honestly a fine interpretation. It lines up really well with the story, but it always left some things open that I think are filled by this interpretation. Why would Henry be given such a high position after being poached as an administrator for Murray's Costume Manor? If he'd been the owner of Chica's Party World, it would make a lot more sense that he'd be given an important position overseeing the Fazbear project. After all, Edwin was offered the position of a lead engineer by Afton. And it sounds a hell of a lot like what Henry was stated to be doing. Plus, I honestly think it makes zero sense for Henry to have been an admin. He's a creator in his heart of hearts. After all, William was always the businessman. Henry was the visionary with his head in the clouds. But wait, there's more! Fiona Murray was stated to be the one who designed the Chica mascot suit. We see her blueprints, and Milton congratulates her in his message about the client loving her chicken designs. But key detail: the physical suit doesn't look like Fiona's art. This can mean one of two things. Edwin fucked up his wife's designs, or Fiona's designs didn't end up being used for the final, instead turning out as the creepy physical suits we see in-game. And who do we know that makes creepy looking mascot suits? Henry fucking Emily. There it is, the purple in his character messing things up. Compared to William, he's a great guy, but he's selfish. He makes things about himself. He fucked up Fiona's brilliant art because he had to be the one to do it himself. And what happened to Chica's Party World? Their sales were through the roof after Fiona's art came in, and that commercial was absolutely adorable. But due to his own meddling, his restaurant company immediately took a nosedive right into William's loving arms. He made changes to the Fazbear project, not because he and William were twirling their evil mustaches together while they preyed on Edwin's downfall. William sure was, but he could just let Henry ruin Edwin's project all by himself, because he knew that Henry was a control freak who needed to make sure his vision came to fruition. Hell, take what he says in FNAF 6. Even though he blames himself for the events of the series, he still turns the focus to himself. Prisons of my making, a wound first inflicted on me. It's all me, me, me with Henry. Which is where I'd like to bring in another color to Henry's section of the chroma key, green. Much like the other two colors so far, its association with Henry is subtle, but it's there if you look. In the security puppet minigame, the puppet is depicted with green eyes, corresponding to Charlie's bright green wristband. We know that Henry made this puppet specifically for the purpose of protecting his daughter. Reminds me of another visually green program made to care for the child of its creator. I think it's time we get onto the real main event. It's time to talk about Fiona. Oh, Fiona Murray. If you thought the last section was crazy, buckle the fuck up. Much like Henry, I believe Fiona carries similar color associations of green, yellow, and a bit of purple. But this time, Steel Wool actually managed to give us visual proof. First, let's look at every image we are provided in Secret of the Mimic of what the real Fiona Murray looked like. I found 4 images throughout MCM that show us the human Fiona, and in those photos she is wearing the following outfits: a purple blouse, a green dress with a green party mask, a yellow sweater and a green skirt, and her wedding dress. She is also represented as the blonde woman in all of the MCM commercials, and when taking those into account, 70s era sexist undertones aside, she is never seen without a pearl necklace in any image depicting her. Also, this is kind of a side note and somewhat unimportant, but it looks as though she has blue eyes in all of these images. However, when I went into the color picker on Adobe Photoshop, it was coming up as more of a greenish shade, especially when compared to Edwin's sky blue eyes. Hell, even compared to the background on the image with her in the purple blouse, her eyes look more of a sea green than an ocean blue. But on the note of green, before we analyze the meaning of those colors, let us discuss our favorite Robo-Mom, M1, or F10N4, or just Fiona. She has too many names. Now, FionaBot, ooh, I like that. FionaBot is associated with the Mimic as a whole. And the only time we see it inhabiting the Mimic's body, it shares M2's glowing orange eyes, which I will be talking about later. But across M1's confirmed and speculated appearances throughout all of Steel Wool's games, we notice two characters that FionaBot is largely represented by: Sun and Nightmarion. Doesn't make any sense. The puppet is Charlie's character. That was the whole Green Eyes connection with the security puppet and Henry. Unless, because of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, it was confirmed that the puppet was possessed by Henry's daughter, plain and simple, and through context clues and parallels, we can assume that that daughter's name was Charlotte. Unless Scott suddenly decided that Henry's kid was named Cassidy all along, at which point I will genuinely consider if Andrew from the books is the vengeful spirit from Ultimate Custom Night, but not today. Anyway, the theorist community took that information, and upon seeing the increasing role of the character of Nightmarion, or as it's referred to in Steel Wool's games, simply Nightmare, made us all jump to the conclusion that Charlie was somehow the game's equivalent of the storyteller tree. After all, look at all of those puppet wires snaking around the Pizzaplex, just like roots. But what Secret of the Mimic adds to the equation is not only a direct parallel to the storyteller and Edwin's automated studio technology that he was planning to sell to TV studios, but also a digital consciousness that was actually connected to the building through various black wires. M1, F10N4. The main focal points of these strange puppet wires are in these recreations of rooms from Help Wanted throughout the Pizzaplex, all of which contain some kind of sun or moon memorabilia. A direct connection between Nightmarion and the character of Eclipse. Bingo. But I hear you asking, what does this have to do with the color green? Eclipse is yellow and blue, and Nightmarion is black and white. And to that I say, very astute observation. Now allow me to do some color magic on you fools. When I take this yellow square and this blue square and overlay them over each other, it becomes green. And when I do the same with black and white, it becomes gray. Crazy shit, I know. And we already know what gray means. It means ghosts. Now, green can be easily interpreted as representative of the M1 program. After all, every computer in MCM is green, which not all old computers were just green. Many had monochromatic displays, but as often as they were green, they had blue or orange displays. Keep that in mind for a bit from now. We see the green sun character surrounding the F10N4 console at the end of the game. And despite the fact that Moon.exe contained orange elements, it still chose to represent Sun, M1, as a green version of Sun, the old witch from the cabin. Because FionaBot is one with the Mimic program and thus technology as a whole, you can take that black and white making gray to represent, say, the metal of the machinery that M1 runs on. But that raises another question. Fiona the human is also seen frequently wearing green. And she's possessing M1, so why haven't you connected this to her living form yet? That would be because Fiona Mori doesn't possess the Mimic, or the Mimic program, in the slightest. The real Fiona was a multifaceted person, which I can use the color theory my previous analysis has provided to assign her mainly the yellow traits of liveliness and creativity that she shares with Henry. However, she's also shown wearing purple, which can show her injury at the hands of MCM and specifically Edwin. I would try to connect her to some evil that she's done, but really the living character of Fiona hasn't really done all that wrong. I mean, after all, this picture is meant to accompany this picture of Edwin, which is also his only depiction wearing purple, and I'll get to that when I talk about him. But Fiona was a multifaceted person with wants, dreams, desires, and boundless creative and artistic potential. M1 is not that. What Edwin believes is his wife returned from the dead is simply a combination of the Mimic program doing what it was created to do, and Edwin's deluded agony imbuing this machine with his memories of Fiona, his need for a caretaker, a mother for David. Not a wife and a mother, but a simulation of the concept of a wife and a mother. It's like the fucking Stepford Wives, but with less obvious murder. Think about how when Henry was making the Charlie robots in the books, it didn't have a shred of Charlie's actual spirit. Instead, the Charlie robots were brought to life by Henry's agony and grief, convincing himself that he was able to bring back his daughter through machinery. That is M1 to a T, but swap Henry and Charlie for Edwin and Fiona. It even includes a later iteration of that robot killing its creator, in the sense that M2 and Book Circus Baby also share strong parallels that I won't be getting into here. It doesn't really tie into chroma key theory that much. Anyway, to conclude this mini ramble, M1 is Edwin's idea of what a Fiona should be. Something that takes care of David, makes dinner, and who knows what else. Point is, M1 exists to execute a singular function: care for David. Just like her singular color: green. No, we're getting to you later, Orange. But how does green factor into this? What does green mean? Green is a color of endless nuance and variation, but for the purposes of chroma key theory, I want to make two categories: the natural green and the unnatural green. Fiona Mori and the M1 program. Green is one of the most abundant colors in nature, besides maybe brown. Leaves, grass, flowers, plants, and animals alike. Humans do not contain this much green inherently, only sometimes having green eyes and oftentimes getting green things stuck between our teeth. But humans will also frequently use green clothes and earthy tones to signify a connection to nature. It is also the color of rot, mold, and decay, all natural processes. Remind you of any particular rabbit-shaped creature? Green in plant life comes from the chlorophyll they produce, which allows them to absorb sunlight better. Green is also frequently used to represent inherently unnatural or evil concepts like nuclear waste or harmful radiation. Green is basically the color of every poison, evil spell, or Disney villain. But it also has a strong correlation with my favorite evil in the world: money. It shows up frequently in technology, still today being the main color used for circuit boards. Now let's apply this concept to our two Fionas. One, a natural human who creates organic art and makes things with her bare hands, like puppets. The other, a cold, calculating machine who would like to think it cares about its son, but has really only been programmed to be a bare facsimile of humanity. And while I have unnatural green representing evil on the brain, I'd like to briefly touch on another robotic facsimile of humanity, that of William Afton. I don't want to give my whole spiel on Glitch Trap here, since that, like Midnight Motorist, deserves its own video. But it cannot be ignored how prevalent the dual nature of the colors green and purple are in FNAF, especially throughout the Pizzaplex. I mean, hell, All of those things that I said about the unnatural green being representative of evil spells and Disney villains and just the concept of the unnatural in general, that fulfills to a T what I was describing about the color purple in relation to William Afton. There is a lot of relationship between that, especially in the specific instance that is the glitch trap virus. But again, I'll be doing that in its own video, should this one receive enough support. But what does that say about our dear boy who programmed N1? What does it say about Fiona was, compared to the nuances of Edwin Mori, a bit simple. And that is because his relationship with color is, well, all about his relationships. Fiona really only had an established relationship with Edwin Mori. However lame that is for women in storytelling. But to lay the foundation, Edwin's main colors are blue, orange, and purple, with a tiny bit of green in there, but that is literally only due to his creator status of the machinery he made. But blue should be the obvious one. It's what he wears in his family portrait, which is where I got the yellow and green for Fiona, and it's the main color of Moon, which is basically Edwin's spring Bonnie with how much he associates with the character. Fiona is the sun to Edwin's moon. Fairly surface level stuff. Plus, the same voice actor in Secret of the Mimic voices Edwin Mori and whatever that weird fucking moon creature is in the basement that gave me nightmares for a solid week. But think about every single other character we've discussed so far. Basically none of them share an association with blue with Edwin. Interesting, huh? Really, the only character whose main and most obvious color is blue is Bonnie. And Bonnie is also frequently associated with purple, and he always wears bow ties. Is Edwin Bonnie? No, obviously not. But let's go deeper into Edwin's association with purple. Edwin is shown with a purple bow tie in this image of him, likely to parallel Fiona's purple blouse, but it again raises the same question. Why put Edwin in purple in the first place? It would have made so much more sense to put him in a blue bow tie. I believe this is less of a connection to Fiona than it is to William. After all, Edwin and William share many traits. This somewhat mad inventor archetype they both fulfill. The way they both likely work with REMNANT. Their strange and dangerous developments in animatronic technology, and their other strange and dangerous developments in futuristic technology, and AI. The list goes on and on. Am I suggesting that William stole his entire thing from Edwin? No. If I were saying that, I would have put the Bonnie association heavily onto Edwin. But Edwin and William share enough similarities that it draws questions to it. But besides the character of Moon, what other associations does Edwin hold? Interestingly enough, Edwin seems to share many smaller associations with a metric fuck-ton of other characters who later integrated themselves, or should I say, were integrated, into the Fazbear brand. But let's run down the list. Foxy the Pirate, Roxanne Wolf, Orville Elephant, Mr. Hippo, Montgomery Gator, Happy Frog, fucking Helpy, and Chica the Goddamn Chicken, though that was more of a Fiona and Henry thing, according to this theory. Not to mention advanced spring-lock technology and all of the other characters Edwin made that William or Henry didn't decide to steal, which on that note, anyone think that Springlock suit in Night 4 of Sister Location could possibly be based on the Jest cereal mascot? Just throwing shit out there. All of this to say, Edwin is an incredibly symbolically dense character. But let's return to the colors. Blue. What does that shit mean? The color of water and the sky, a natural air element to green's earth element. The two pair extremely well. Keep that in mind. Now, to read the Gemini AI search result for blue meaning color theory, as Edwin Mori would have intended. In color theory, blue symbolizes calm, trust, and stability, reflecting the peaceful nature of the sky and the sea. It can also evoke sadness or coldness, depending on the shade and context. Lighter blues, like sky blue, are associated with freedom and serenity, while dark blues, like navy, convey authority, seriousness, and wisdom. Obviously, some things stand out more than others when thinking about our third favorite neglectful father. Sadness, coldness, authority, seriousness, and wisdom definitely remind me of the portrait that audio logs paint of our dear Edwin. Now, orange, color of no characters besides Orville Elephant, really, but orange is incredibly important to Edwin's character. I think it would be better explored through the character of... Let's talk about Remnant. Remnant, sweet metal soul juice. Remnant has been depicted in multiple forms, but if we do the franchise the service of ignoring how FNAF AR depicted it, it has been relatively consistent throughout the various books, metal infused with soul. But when it is being transferred to a new source, or superheated in general for whatever purpose, it is a glowing orange molten liquid. Now, what do we see all over Secret of the Mimic? Glowing orange liquid whatever the fuck. Now, could it be lava? Sure. Could it just be a strange glowing orange chemical Edwin developed? Yes, but that would be incredibly narratively unsatisfying. We do see Edwin having this whole recycling system which turns metal objects into melted molten orange goo. And I know I am nowhere near the first theorist to believe that Edwin inventing recycling results in either the discovery of remnant, usually discovery, not invention, because I don't believe for a fucking second that Edwin invented remnant. That was an accidental discovery at best. But the Mimic, M2, the endoskeleton I haven't even mentioned, really, thus far. One of its defining characteristics is its glowing orange spiral eyes. This has fascinated me since I played the game for the first time because I stated in the Fiona section that I do not believe the M1 program is haunted in the slightest. However, I never spoke about M2, or the physical endoskeleton itself. Let's draw a parallel to the Charlie bots from the books. While the spirit of Charlotte Emily never even came close to attaching itself to any of those robo-kids, she still had the spark of life given to her by the Ella doll, which contained so much of Henry's grief, his agony trapped within it. His pain and love for his child gave this inanimate robot something that mimicked a soul. Now back to the Mimic. Replace Henry with Edwin, and Charlie with Fiona. And David. Edwin was wrecked emotionally twice, by Fiona and David's deaths, especially by David's. He built this endoskeleton initially with no driving agony behind it, thusly giving it an existence not defined by being a specific person, merely to embody the character of whatever suit it was in. However, once Fiona died, Edwin began to spiral into grief-stricken madness. And in that, he somehow develops the program that becomes M1, F10, and 4. Again, completely by accident. Edwin does not know what the fuck he's doing. We never see what the Mimic looks like fully before Fiona Bot comes to be the dominant personality in control of it. And when it does, its eyes glow a bright orange. I think that is drawing a deliberate connection to the idea of remnant. Now, a quick counter-argument to that. The eyes resemble the coil of light bulbs, which glow in a similar bright orange or white fashion when heated by the travel of electrons through them. However, counter-argument. In the secret ending of the game, we gain the glitched permission from M1. And when we insert the glitched data diver into the Mimic, its eyes flash green and then change to blue. Also, in the only instance we see of Fiona being in control, her eyes are not fully orange, having large spots in the middle to represent dilated pupils. And again, really scientific for a second, coiled filaments don't fucking do that. The orange coloration of the Mimic's eyes is a deliberate choice that can't be explained by the physical makeup of the Mimic. Plus, the Mimic in Ruin lacks these coiled eyes, having what are likely LED bulbs. and its eyes still glow a bright orange. I fully believe that is Remnant fueling the mimic, once fueled by Edwin's guilt, and after David's death, potentially David's agony attaches to the mimic, depending on how he died, creating even more Remnant inside this bitch. And remember what I said about old computer screens? While they were very commonly green, they were also often blue or orange, like Edwin and the fucking mimic. We even see orange elements in Moon.exe with collectibles, which could be argued to have that orange hue because of the strong emotional attachments David and the other Murrays had to those objects. Thus, Remnant. But let's flash back to a minute ago. What other colors do the mimic's eyes flash in the storybook ending? And when we insert the glitched data diver into the mimic, its eyes flash green and then change to blue. Oh my god. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and all other configurations of being, I'm standing up for this recording. Let's talk about God David. Remember all those times I talked about blue and green? Well, this is where I go into depth on that. To those who haven't heard of the theory, it was primarily put forward by theorist Talbert David Reeds, aka T-Treads, along with the Unwithered Truth, Withered Circle, Fazbear Entertainment, and others. What is up, chat? This is Editing Mori here to tell you guys that I have linked every single creator who I've referenced in this video in the description. I forgot to write it into the script, but yeah. T-Dreads, Fazbear Entertainment, Unwithered Truth, Gibby's Horror Homestead, She's Always Nervous, Dual Process Theory, everybody is in the description. Along with specifically the videos for God David by T-Dreads and Fazbear Entertainment's sort of follow-up sequel video to that, Gibby's Fate Fiona video, and She's Always Nervous's Remnant Plex. Those are very important. Just go subscribe to every single creator who I have down in the description. Just subscribe to FNAF theorists in general, man. Anyway, Editing Mori out, back to the theory. But that's enough glazing. Let's analyze God David from the perspective of Chroma key theory. How do the colors and visual symbols involved with David, the Crying Child, and Gregory synergize and connect to the other characters in this series? The God David theory builds on the Another David theory, which states that Gregory from Security Breach is meant to be a recreation of David Murray. Whether it's through robot kids, fate, or weird brain shenanigans, that's the basis. God David postulates that not only are David and Gregory connected, but the Crying Child, or Dave Afton thanks to Hyperdroid, is also part of this mix. It also plays on the many narrative tropes of digital consciousness transference and recreating humans through technology that Scott Cawthon is very, very fond of. I'm here to delve even deeper into the visual aspects of God David in order to make some connections with the ideas discussed previously in this video. We all remember this fuck-ass graphic from MatPat's Gregbot video, illustrating the direct visual similarities in the Crying Child and Gregory's visual appearances. And T-Dreads made some connections to that idea, adding David Murray into the mix. Dark shirt, with 2 light stripes, brown hair, band-aid on the knee, whatnot. But let's think about the various characters, symbols, and objects people like William Afton, Fiona, and Edwin Murray have been strongly associated with. What do our 3 boys have in that regard? Close companionship with a mascot character, David with the White Tiger, Dave Afton with Fredbear, and Gregory with Glamrock Freddy. They all have a specific set of objects associated with them. David has his tiger plush and the ball. Dave Afton has his 5 plushies, especially his Fredbear one. Gregory has Glamrock Freddy's head at the end of the Princess Quest ending, his backpack, the Faz Watch, and the Faz Talker in Ruin. And the color blue. David has 1 blue eye, and yes, he does have heterochromia. The picture is just really bad quality. Again, color picker to the rescue. Dave Afton has his blue shorts, and Gregory has his blue shirt. And there it is, blue, Edwin's main color, and what I believe is the beginning of our web of connections in these three. Edwin is the father of David, and the one who created the Mimic along with the M1 program, which God David posits is the one to have made Gregory into this recreation of David Mori, hence the strong association with blue. And Fiona in general is associated with the color of green. That's how you get the iconic imagery of one green eye, one blue eye in David and the White Tiger. But Mori, I hear you asking. It's the second question of this video. Don't push your luck. Why don't Gregory and the crying child share this same blue and green color scheme? And to that I say, look at Sun. I spent the entire Fiona section explaining why Sun is green. But when we were introduced to Sun, what color was he? Orange, along with some yellow and red, which, no fucking surprise, combines to make orange. And what other colors have I associated Fiona with the most? Yellow and orange. When you factor in the color orange to God David, just the color orange, you get a litany of connections between David and Gregory. David has his white tiger, which through his green and blue eyes directly represents both his nature as the child of Edwin and the living Fiona, and his recreation by Edwin as spurred on by the unliving F10N4. The crying child has Fredbear, which represents his nature as an Afton, both in the character of Fredbear and the colors yellow and purple. Notably, while he has blue shorts connecting him to Edwin and thus the Mimic program, he lacks any orange or green anywhere in his appearance in FNAF 4. This is important, as while it isn't the biggest conclusion that I've come to this video by a long shot, I do believe this shows us that Fiona never really had any direct involvement with recreating Dave Mori into Dave Afton. I think it goes to show that endeavor was an Afton project specifically, since his David became enamored with Fredbear as opposed to anything created by Edwin or Fiona, unless you count his Foxy and Chica plushie, but even then that was a Fazbear acquired brand by the time of 1983. And Gregory. He has no green anywhere in his color scheme, but his visual design is chock full of blue and orange. His whole thing is Glamrock Freddy, who is an orange and blue animatronic. His backpack is Glamrock Freddy, his Faz watch is Glamrock Freddy, hell, even the Faz talker the Mimic uses to imitate Gregory is themed after Glamrock Freddy. He still has that connection all the way back to Edwin, but the orange is incredibly interesting. Now, this may be the stretch of all stretches, but the specific use of orange in Gregory's visual design might be less of a representation of Fiona Bot trying to make another David, but if Fiona is still in control of the Pizzaplex, and she's always nervous's Remnant Plex theory holds true, this might not have been a conscious effort from Fiona as much as it was the Pizzaplex itself. Fucking Shining Overlook Hotel style. Running on the Mimic program, developing its own sort of proto-consciousness, choosing Gregory and infecting him with this new M3 strain of the Mimic program in order to carry out Fiona's underlying desire to recreate David. It's more convoluted and it might just be easier to say Fiona did it herself and it doesn't really change anything, but I'm just putting the idea out there. But, okay, so tulpas, otherwise known as thought forms. The idea in certain folklores that if you think hard enough about something, it can manifest itself into reality. Normally, in spiritual traditions, tulpas exist as a sort of way to manifest imaginary people. However, imagine Fiona, M1, a constantly running, constantly thinking entity. It has been shown time and time again in this franchise, robots and humans can be essentially indistinguishable, especially if they are haunted by a soul or agony or whatever. Fiona, M1 Fiona, has remnant. A fuck ton of it by the time of security breach. She obviously has a very powerful artificial mind. What if, and hear me out here, what if Fiona Bot thought so hard about recreating David, her only son, that those thoughts started to manifest into reality? What if the thought of David started to manifest in the heads of others, someone like William Afton? And then here's where the Tulpa weirdness comes in. Okay, Pizzaplex, Gregory. Fiona's thoughts have been building up so much in her Fiona wires of doom that this latent idea of recreate David has permeated the building itself. The whole system wants to make a new David. Again, The Shining, the Overlook Hotel, the building itself is alive. And that's what you see in the Glamrock Endo training minigame in Help Wanted 2. That's why all those kids have gone missing. And the entire time it failed. Over and over and over, iteration after iteration, until one fateful day, this kid who's very gifted with technology, at least if we can take the loose inspiration from the Tales of the Pizza Box story, GGY, Greg, was an incredibly talented hacker. Hell, it says that in the Patient 46 tapes. This kid in a striped shirt walks into the Pizzaplex, and that's it. It works. This thought form, Tulpa of David, manifests in Gregory's head once he plays through the Balloon World arcade machine. It's a mechanically constructed Tulpa invading this kid's head, fucking You're the Band style. Now, obviously, it's not the real David. Just like M1 isn't the real Fiona, but Fiona has gotten what she wants. She has made another David. That's why the therapy tapes for Patient 46 are so strange. That's why the entire Pizzaplex seems to turn Gregory into enemy number one once he returns to normal, caused by Glamrock Freddy's going into safe mode. In Fate Fiona, amazing theory by Gibby's Horror Homestead, the rival theory to God David in heavy quotation marks, suggests that F10N4, the M1 program, is using the 0-point field, which is a concept introduced in the story Fetch from Fazbear Frights, in order to influence the events of the series to go the way they do, which is why there's so many repeating motifs throughout the narrative. But what if it's fucking ghost mind magic? David has existed as a thought form within the F10N4 console for decades. It started with an almost successful experiment through the mind of William Afton, but the thought forms in his head, all these ideas that weren't his, drove him to madness. And that's why the crying child has so little connection to Fiona. It's not Fiona consciously making this effort, it's Fiona's thoughts made real, filtered into the mind of William Afton. After all, they're living in the same house by the time that David Afton is alive. Even if William Afton didn't discover the F10N4 console, those thoughts would still be close enough, orbiting in the air, to permeate into his mind through thought osmosis. Maybe that's what made him start killing. The insane desire to make a new David in his brain pushed him past just being a shitty businessman into a mad scientist, a serial killer. No, this under this interpretation, William Afton would have been driven to have similar intentions to Fiona, meaning he cared about his kids? Oh, this is truly the dark timeline if WILLCARE is canon. God, it's all the fucking field, isn't it? No, it all makes sense now. It's all Fiona, her thoughts. It's some kind of Tulpa David. No, that doesn't work. Water, give me thoughts. It's, maybe Fiona Tulpamancy. Ugh, what a mouthful. David's ghost is something that haunts the narrative due to being a victim to all this meddling by Edwin, Afton, and Fiona. He almost takes this holy position, being the divine goal so many characters wish to achieve, a divine victim. Like a god victim. No, we already have that. Chroma key theory featuring Tulpa David. There we go. But what does this all mean? What have I been ranting on about for all of this time? What is my grand conclusion to this mountain of visual evidence? I believe there are a few conclusions I've come to in this video. Cue the graphic. Henry was the founder and owner of Chica's Party World before being ruined by William Afton and joining him at Fazbear Entertainment, where he would be the creative genius behind much of Fazbear's grand inventions, when not stealing from Edwin, of course. Remnant is everywhere. Fiona is everywhere, but we already knew that. God David can be bolstered by associating the three Davids, David Mori, Dave Afton, and Gregory Security Breach, with their respective environments to figure out how each one came into being. And even if Tulpa David theory doesn't make any sense, it still provides a more sound explanation to how it could have happened. Hell, I convinced myself over the course of recording this. And finally, purple is a nearly ever-present color in this series. And while it is most strongly associated with William Afton, it is associated with William, Henry, Edwin, and Fiona alike. We should be paying more attention to that in crafting future theories. When looking at the color yellow, it may in fact be associated with William. In fact, William is one of the simplest characters in the series, visual design-wise. He isn't really associated with the color green at all, besides a chroma key theory. At least most of it. Thank you so much to everyone who has watched this video to the very, very end. It means the absolute most to me. I've been cooking this theory up ever since Secret of the Mimic released, and I played it day one. And I realized that Henry might have just been the one behind Chica's Party World. Hell, there was a theory bubbling in the back of my mind that Henry and Fiona might actually be siblings or cousins like that, but it didn't really make sense for chroma key theory. I might do a whole separate video on the family ties between all of these characters, because I have some thoughts on that. But this was many months in the making, and it kept getting pushed off due to personal projects that have come and gone, as well as new theories like God David and Fate Fiona, giving me juicy new angles to attack chroma key theory from. I hope this graphic does it a modicum of justice, and a link to it is in the description, so as I said, you can all flame me on Twitter for it. Please, I need the engagement. Speaking of engagement, my commissions are open, and you can check my glorious art out on Twitter and Blue Sky at Mori Mortimer. I also have a Ko-Fi if you want to show support to the channel there, and a Patreon that I haven't had a reason to use yet, but hey, if y'all want more FNAF theories out of me, maybe in the future there will be a use for it. But until then, memento mori, and goodbye. Ain't nothing but a Tales games, ain't nothing but a Frights games. I never wanna hear you say, perilous again.